Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Alhamdulillah, this is week 3 of our class on prohibitions of the tongue, Friday classes. Inshallah, we're going to continue on the poem of Muhammad Maulud. And before we move on, just the last line of what we read last week was, whoever narrates a fabricated hadith and does not mention the fabricated status has sinned. So we mentioned from that that you cannot relate hadiths unless they are authentic or sound. Relating fabricated hadith is a lie about the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ because he never said it. So there is a science, there are collections of sayings of the Prophet Muhammad that are called the mawdu'at or the fabricated hadiths. Obviously, this is a very scholarly area. It's not for normal people to be reading them. But I want to warn you that, but also for you to know that if someone else is doing this, they're committing a sin by doing so. So if someone states something that the Prophet ﷺ supposedly said, but from the sciences of from the sciences of hadith, it is known that he never said this. How do we know that? We do know what he said, what he didn't say. There's a whole science behind it. Okay? And so hadith looks at the chain of narrators. Sometimes chains are missing, or sometimes the chain, not that the chain is missing, but if there's somebody in the chain who known to be a liar and this hadith is fabricated by that person, then it gets recorded as it's the Prophet didn't say it. It's a lie. So whoever says a fabricated hadith has lied about the Prophet ﷺ. So this is a very serious thing. Now in the handout it said, and we'll start off on the top, it is prohibited to make unlawful what the Sharia has made lawful, whether for something specific or in general. And this is kind of where we are at in the line of Muharram al-Lisan, is it is prohibited, this page 26 if you ever get the book, وَتَحْرِيمُ مَا شَرْعُ أَبَاحَ كَالْمَاءِ خَصَّصَ تَحْرِيمِهِ أَوْ عَمَّ. So it is prohibited to make unlawful what the Sharia has made lawful, whether for something specific or in general. So this is taken from some verses in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions not to make haram what is halal for you. So for someone to actually change the status of something halal and make it haram upon themselves, this would be prohibited to do so. And especially we're talking about saying it with the tongue. Saying it with the tongue. So the example he gives is, for example, someone who says, milk is haram upon me, I'm never going to drink it again. That's prohibited to say that. Because Allah didn't make milk haram. Why are you making it haram? Right? I'm going to swear off coffee. Haram for me to ever have coffee. You can't do that. You don't want to drink it, that's fine. You don't like it, that's fine. But you cannot say it is prohibited upon me when Allah didn't make it prohibited. Okay? Do you get the difference? And you also cannot say something that is prohibited to be okay for you. This would be forbidden on the tongue to say. For example, someone says, I don't care if going to a party is haram or drinking alcohol, I'm going to do it. That's prohibited to say. And if somebody believes it to be valid, they would be committing an act of kufr. Because it's known by necessity, alcohol is something forbidden in Islam. For someone to think alcohol is okay, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a serious matter. Okay? So that's what he's saying. So how do we know when something is lawful or not? It takes knowledge of the Islam to learn. That's why you're in classes learning. We have to know what is lawful and what is not, what is prohibited and what is not. So this comes over time, and the more you increase in knowledge, the more you'll learn. And the verse is in the 10th chapter, it looks like, verse 59. Say, have you seen what Allah has sent down to your provision, of which you have made lawful and unlawful? O you who believe, in another verse, do not forbid for yourselves the good things that Allah has made permissible for you. That's where it's taken. Okay? So, And inshallah, we're going to try to make these classes a little more easier to understand. So we can say the summary of that is, don't ever say something is prohibited when Allah didn't make it. And don't ever say something is okay when Allah didn't allow it. Your words will have to match what Islamic law says for is for halal or not for you. Okay? Any questions on that? All right. So we move now to the next line. وَالْأَمْرُ بِالذَّنْبِ وَأَنْ يُحَدِّثَ بِكُلِّ مَا سَمِعَهُ أَوْ يَمْلُحَ. It is prohibited to order someone to perform a prohibited act. Again, it is prohibited, not allowed. To tell someone or order someone to do something that's prohibited. And another topic he talks about is also what is prohibited is saying, relating everything you hear and then relating it to others. Relating everything that one hears, and also making a false promise. So these are three different things he's talking about. We're going to go through one by one. Okay? The first part is وَالْأَمْرُ بِالذَّنْبِ, commanding or telling someone to do something that is prohibited. A hadith is narrated, this is in the notes, that states the one who guides to goodness is like the one who actually does the good. So we have this beautiful understanding in Islam that if you tell someone to do something good, you get the full reward, right? And this is kind of like what telemarketers do. You know, you guys heard of those? Like when they make calls and they get a certain amount of customers to sign on, a certain amount of their money they'll also get because they brought them to the company, right? So for every customer you sign on to this company, we'll give you 50 cents or $1 of their bill for you. So people get all happy, and then they make calls and they try to get thousands and thousands of customers. The more customers they get, the more money they make. So this is the way the company pushes people to make money, right? Islam is very beautiful in the sense that anything that you say of good, whether you don't do it, but you tell somebody else to do it good, something that is good, you'll get the full reward, even if you yourself didn't do it. So someone is sitting around and they're like, well, I'm thinking of going to Hajj or not, but I'm not sure. And then you tell them, look, you should go to Hajj because this benefit, that benefit. You should really go. Don't wait, because if you wait, this could happen and that. And you're telling them, encouraging them, and then they say, fine, I'll go to Hajj. Even though you didn't go, you'll get all their reward because you told them to. So when you tell somebody, pray, you'll get the reward for prayer. When you tell somebody anything good, you get the full reward. All right? This is one of my favorite things of Islam. Very beautiful. On the Day of Judgment, you don't know how many good deeds you possibly have done. By telling people to do good, you don't even know. Right? Now, the next part of that hadith, though, says, and the one who guides to evil, the one who guides to bad, is like the one who actually does the evil. There's a problem. Right? On the one hand, whatever you tell somebody to do good, you get the reward. And if you tell anybody to do something bad, you also get the sin for it. So, for example, somebody's going out to a party. You're not going, but you tell them, it's not a big deal, just go. You go. They're like, fine, I'll go. And then you ask the person, you don't want to go to this party? And say the party has alcohol and a lot of bad stuff. And then the person says, no, I don't go to that. But you just told him to go. That's not a big deal. Yeah, it is. Because now everything that guy does is on you. Because you encouraged it. Right? You encouraged it. So we have to be careful with our tongue. Previously, there's a statement that was mentioned that it is a sin to aid or help or assist anyone in sin, even by half a word. So if somebody says, I'm thinking of going to that bar, I'm not sure, and you say, just go. You know, maybe you don't say the full, you say go. Even if you say half a word, which indicates any way that you encourage it, you also have the sin for it. So be careful. Very big danger. And it's not just simple things like go to the bar or do something prohibited like that, but it could be in other ways that are more subtle. Okay? Some scholars even say that if someone asks you directions for somewhere, that there's sin taking place there, don't tell them where it is. So somebody might come to you and say, hey, where's that nightclub? Where's that bar? Even if you know where it is, don't tell them where it is. So I'm sorry, I can't help you. Right? Just tell them that. Because if you say, yeah, go up the block three blocks up, then make a left, it's right there. You help them get there. Where if you didn't tell them where it is, maybe they might have kept looking and decided, you know what, I'm tired, I'm just not going to go. You don't know. So don't aid and assist in anything that is bad. Okay? So if you have any question, inshallah, write them down so you don't forget them. So this is what it means to order someone to do something prohibited. Now, relating everything that you hear, what this means is if a person has a habit of everything they hear, they go and tell others, right? So I come to you and I tell you, you know, this happened, that happened. I told you a bunch of different things. And then you go and tell everybody without checking if it's true or not. You know, how do you know if that really took place? You don't verify, you don't check. You just, you relate everything that you hear. Eventually, the scholars say there's no way you're not going to make a mistake or lie. Okay? And lying in Islam is a major sin. And lying has a specific definition. And I put this on the notes. It says, lying is defined as mentioning anything in other than its true state. Lying is mentioning something that is not in that real state. In other words, what you said about it is not true. It doesn't hold that thing to be true. And even if it was unintentional, even if you didn't mean to, but so a lie in Islam is when you state something that reality is not there, whether you meant it or not. However, the condition that lying is impermissible is if you do it intentionally. So it is a lie, but you may not be held accountable if you didn't do it intentionally. Okay? So this is important, and what it's teaching us is don't relate everything you hear. And in the notes I put Imam al-Munawi says if a person does not have any sins except relating everything that he hears, whether it's true or not, that would be sufficient for him. This is because not everything that he hears is true. One must look into the matter and not relate anything unless he thinks or knows that it is true. If he thinks it is not true, then it would be prohibited to relate. Right? If he's in doubt about its truth, mentions who says it. So I have a doubt, but I heard from Abdullah that such and such thing happened. And then this is what I heard. God knows best. I can't verify. That would be okay. Right? But if somebody were to say, you know, something that you're not sure of, you have a doubt, and then you tell others, it's going to sound like you know that for sure. So it's just saying verify. Check it to make sure it's true or not true. If the person is in doubt about its truth, mentions who said it, clarified, then he's only relating what he heard, he would be free of sin. But if he does not, then it is prohibited to narrate it. So if he does not say, I haven't verified it, I'm not sure about the facts, but he just tells it as if it's fact, then it's a problem. In particular, obviously, you get in trouble with hadiths, Islamic knowledge. You know, you just hear different things, anybody saying anything and everything, and then without you verifying if it is truly a hadith, or it is truly a verse, or it is truly what the scholar said, you just, whatever you're hearing, you're just telling others all about it. Then this would be a problem. And you're probably going to end up lying because not everything everyone says is true. There's a lot of lies, and you have to verify. So that's a very important one. I get asked a question a lot of times, and I'm not qualified to answer some of these questions, but they ask things like, it's what we heard on YouTube, it's what one sheikh said, blah, blah, blah. You have to be careful. Not every sheikh is a sheikh. Not every scholar is a real scholar. And so you have to be careful what you're relating to others. You can't, it's not true just because you watched a video on it. You have to verify. There's ways of verifying. You would consult a lot of times if you have a trustworthy sheikh. You call them and say, I read this hadith, I'm not sure if it's a hadith, is it? And then they would verify, or they would say, even if they know or don't know or whatever. Okay? Because what it teaches us in Islam is you can't just relay everything hearsay, right? Everything you hear, you do that. Even in America, in news channels, in articles and things like that, they don't just relate something that somebody said, right? They don't relate stuff they heard. They have to verify. So when they quote someone, you guys know that, right? When they quote someone, when they're writing an article, when they're doing, unless they verify, they cannot say that. And if they publish something that is not verified and they made it look like it's factual, you can get in big trouble with people. They can sue you. So that's why even newspapers, articles, things people write, they make sure things are verified before they print it. And that's a good standard for us as Muslims to also do. If you imagine you're going to write something, you're going to publish it, so you better make sure it says what it does, right? So you wouldn't be as lax in that. You would be more serious and treat it more serious. Now, the next bottom part is the next lines reads, وَالْأَمْرُ بِالذَّمِّ. So we covered that with everything that you hear. And the next one is to make a false promise. To make a false promise. What does that mean? That means if you promise something and then you don't fulfill that promise. Now there's a ruling to this that's important for us to know. Let me see if I have something in the notes on that. Yeah, I did. On the bottom, above evil eye, it says, it is prohibited to make a promise when one's intention is not to keep it. What is it again? It is prohibited to make a promise when at the time you make that promise, you do not intend to fulfill that promise. That's prohibited. That's what is meant. If you make a promise, okay, I promise I'll be there tomorrow, but something comes up. You get a flat tire. Some family member comes over, right? You had a scheduling conflict. You don't feel good that day. You get sick. That's fine. There's nothing prohibited about what you said, because when you made the promise, you intended to fulfill it. The only reason you couldn't is because other circumstances happened to you. So that's considered okay. What this is saying is it's prohibited at the time you make the promise. You're like, I'm not going to do this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'll promise I'll be there tomorrow. You promise? Yeah, inshallah. But in your mind, you're like, I'm not going. That's prohibited. It's one of the characteristics of who? Hypocrites. Prophet ﷺ said the hypocrite, he is known by 3 signs. When he speaks, he lies. When he makes a promise, he breaks it. And when he's trusted with something, when the hypocrite is trusted with something, they break their trust. There's 3 signs of a hypocrite. When they speak, they lie. When they make a promise, they break it. Notice that this came up, right? First it was lying, now it's false promise. Okay? So be careful with making promises you cannot live up to. So is at the time of making a promise, let me give you this scenario then. You promise you'll go to somebody's house tomorrow night. And tomorrow night came and you decided you're not going to go. And the reason for it is you just thought another night might actually be better. Is that prohibited or not? Yes, no? What do you guys think? A good question you should ask is, what did he intend when he promised the day before? right? If you intended to do it, yes. So there would be recommended to fulfill your promise, though, right? It's kind of moving closer now to where you don't have an excuse. You should have some kind of excuse. But the worst, what we're trying to say is, at the moment you make a promise, you intended not to fulfill it. That doesn't give you leeway. Don't think, oh, then I can make promises as long as I intend to do them. But intention is strong. Okay, you have to really intend to do that. Now we move to the third of these, which is, he says, so it is prohibited to order someone to perform a prohibited act. We talked about that. Relate everything that you hear is also prohibited. We talked about that. Making a false promise. We also spoke about that. The next one is, so a person relating something he is unsure of its authenticity or verification is obliged to clarify that uncertainty. And this gets a little complicated because, again, going back to what he said earlier, if there's a reason for, so sometimes in certain situations in Islamic law, you could say something, but you do not necessarily need to verify or clarify it, depending on the situation, if it brings harm or not. Okay? And then that's a different issue. We'll talk about it later on. But there's certain situations where you could say something, but there's great benefit by not clarifying what you said. Because by clarifying, it's going to bring about a harm. And by not clarifying, it's going to bring about a great benefit. Okay? There's some situations you can do that. Inshallah, when we get to that part, I will come back to that. So the next is evil eye. What relates to the evil eye? Aynun. Evil eye. So al-ayn here, evil eye, which is looking favorably at something while having jealousy, is caused by a repulsive nature and will cause harm to the one who is being looked at. In a hadith in Bukhari, it mentions by Abu Huraira, evil eye is true, it's real. Al-aynu haq, the evil eye is existent and it's true, it's real. In Sahih Muslim also, if it says if there was something to overtake the qadr, predestination, it would have been the evil eye. Another hadith, it mentions evil eye is real and the devil is present when it occurs. So the evil eye is when one looks at something, you're impressed by what you see, and you do not associate that blessing, that impressiveness to Allah. And it's with an eye of impressiveness or jealousy as well. So you see something, you're like, wow, it's amazing. You don't attach it to the blessing of Allah. So you have to, as a Muslim, when you praise something, you should say, MashaAllah, Tabarakallah. In the notes it says to say, and I wrote that on there, Tabarakallah Ahsanul Khaliqeen, MashaAllah. Right? I think I put that on there. Yeah, I put that under the Tawudi says, what I mentioned. And then I said one should say, Tabarakallah Ahsanul Khaliqeen, Allahumma barik fihi. It's in the notes. Tabarakallah Ahsanul Khaliqeen, Allahumma barik fihi. Or you can say, MashaAllah, Tabarakallah, MashaAllah. Okay? You attach the blessing to Allah so that you can protect it. So if you're good looking, you're very smart, you're a fast runner, you're good at school, you're good at your job, there's something you're good at, and someone notices it and is impressed by it, and then they mention that, you see? They mention it, and they say, oh, wow. Usually the words wow in English are often followed by something that might give you ayn, right? That might give you the evil eye. This is not superstition. This is real. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ said, evil eye is real. It's real. We believe in it. Okay? And so when you see something like that, somebody says, wow, you are so smart, you're so fast, you're so healthy, you have to immediately tell them, please say mashallah, tabarakallah, so that you can be protected. Okay? Otherwise, they might give you the evil eye. Okay? This is kind of in English in America. Sometimes they kind of do this jinx stuff on you, you know? They say, oh, you've never been late to school. Wow. Next day, you're late. And then in English, in America, they often say, you jinxed me. But it's actually you gave me the evil eye. Or they'll say, oh my God, you've never, ever got sick. Wow. Guess what? You'll probably be sick the next day, right? That's all from evil eye. So what this is saying is, don't say those things to people without connecting it back to God by saying Tabarakallah, Ahsanul Khaliqeen, Allahumma barik fihi, MashaAllah, Tabarakallah, MashaAllah, connect it back to Allah to protect the person who has that blessing. Whether that's looks or intelligence or wealth or a car, whatever it is. Anytime someone is impressed and they praise it, make sure they connect it back to Allah. That's why Muslims often say, MashaAllah. They say, MashaAllah, you're so smart. MashaAllah, you're so this. But make sure, remind them. If somebody does that to you, remind them. Say, please say, MashaAllah. Okay? The next prohibited thing, we're moving along to all these little different ones, but it's called men. Men. And men is reminding others of what you have done for them. Okay? So, although I put that on the note, you might want to expand on there. Reminding others of what you have done for them. Reminding others of the favor you've done for them. Reminding others of, in general, what you've done for them. So reminding them, hey, I bought you that car. Hey, I gave you that money. Hey, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be here. Hey, I helped you with this. Hey, I did this. Hey, I did that. Right? That is called men. It's to basically remind others of what you've done for them. But there's harm in this because no one likes being reminded of what others did for them. Right? So, hey, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be here. Right? If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be eating. If it wasn't for me, it's actually if it wasn't for Allah, not for you. So they're associating that thing to themselves, and that's not good because it's only Allah who's truly worthy of being Al-Mannan. It's one of the names of God, though it's not in the 99. Al-Hannan wal-Mannan. Mannan is the one at the Day of Judgment. Allah is the one that reminds people of what He did for them. So Allah says, I gave you eyes, I gave you hearing, I gave you life. What did you do? Allah can remind you because He's deserving. He's the one that gave you those. But not human beings should never remind anybody. So then, what does a human being do when he's done good for people? Keep your mouth quiet. Don't remind anybody. You gave him help with money. You gave him help with teaching. You've done certain things for them. You did it for the sake of Allah, not for them. Don't remind them. Just keep it to yourself. Ask Allah to accept it and reward you. That's it. Don't remind people. There might be an exception where by reminding there's a reason for it. There's a specific reason that is beneficial by Islamic law. Perhaps that might be, we have to look at certain situations like that. But in general, don't remind people. And then he says, also, apart from praising things and evil eye, is men, as we talked about, reminding others of what you've done. And all other types of adha or harm are also prohibited. And he's going to expand on what type of harm that is. Example of this last part of adha includes mockery. Mockery is when you make fun of somebody. And there's a beautiful definition here given of mockery, which is called sukhriya, or in other words, istihza, making fun of people, mocking them. He says mockery is belittling, insulting, or pointing out faults and deficiencies for the purpose of laughter. For the purpose of laughter. So you bring someone down, you make fun of them, you do something in order to laugh. But the person being spoken about or to feels bad. No one likes getting mocked. No one likes getting mocked, right? So this is why mockery is not allowed. Mockery, again, belittling someone, making fun of them in order to make people laugh, or in order for laughter. Any question on that? You guys make sure you keep your stuff real quiet. Don't tap stuff, don't do anything. It's considered bad etiquette. Imam Shafi, when his teacher Imam Malik would teach, when he used to turn the pages, he would do it so quietly that the sound of the paper wouldn't make any noise, right? Because when you're teaching sacred knowledge, no sound should be made at all for respect of the knowledge, because it's sacred knowledge. Knowledge of God and His Messenger, Quranic and Sunnah teachings to be respected. Try not to make any sound at all. Another reason why is so that the teacher can concentrate, and also shows your seriousness and love for the subject, right? And distraction. Because if somebody does this, everybody looks and it distracts them from one word that could benefit you, okay? Now, so again, pointing out faults, belittling, insulting for the purpose of laughter. This could also be through imitating them in action or speech. It could also be, look at this last point, through signaling and indicating. Signaling and indicating. What do you think that could mean? So, somebody says, hey, you know that one guy? You're like, who? It's like, well, you know. Maybe you make a gesture like the person's fat, or the person's skinny, or the person's short, right? So you say, you know, little short one. So you might gesture with your hand, or you might make a face, right? You know that one girl, the one who does that, right? The one who they talk like this. That's all mockery. And they say mockery comes from a disease in the heart, which is arrogance. The only reason you can mock someone is because you believe you're better than them. Isn't that scary? Because then if you have arrogance, guess what happens to you? You don't get to go to paradise. Because Allah prohibited paradise upon those who are arrogant. Kibr. People would think they're better than others. So do you see the disease of when you make fun of others? And notice in your schools, the only people who make fun of other people are often arrogant people. If you see a calm, gentle, nice person, they never make fun of anybody. That's why they came to Moses, in the Quran it mentions a story when Moses told them to sacrifice a certain kind of cow. The children of Israel said, are you making fun of us? They asked Moses that. You know what Moses said? أعوذ بالله أن أكون من الجاهلين. I seek refuge in Allah from being amongst the jahilin, ignorant people. Moses attributed mockery with ignorance, jahl. Because that's what people do when they mock others. They're demonstrating a flag that they're putting next to their name saying, I am ignorant because I'm making fun of others. And that's why comedians would have a hard time, wouldn't they? Because the job of a comedian is often all about making fun of others. Right? Probably not the best job to have. If you can make someone laugh without mocking them, that's fine. It can be funny. But you have to tell the truth. So you can say something like, hey, what do you call a car that can't drive? You're like, what? I don't know what you would call a car that doesn't drive, but you would say something riddle, funny, and people would laugh. That's okay to say. You didn't mock anybody. You didn't lie. You said a riddle that had a nice joke to it. Right? But you come and you say, yeah, I saw my neighbor today. This guy's so foolish. You know, he drives like this, parked the car like that, can't even drive. He did this, that, all because they want to make you laugh. So all that kind of mockery is not allowed. And I know you're probably shocked because I know you guys have probably heard a lot of people mock people all the time. A'udhu billah. If you've ever mocked somebody, you should ask for Allah's forgiveness and their forgiveness recommended that you should do that. Because you did backbiting on them. Whenever you mock somebody, you're speaking about them. There's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that somebody in this hadith indicated someone she was talking about, and she said, with her hand, didn't say anything. With her hand gestured that she's the short one. And the Prophet ﷺ, he told her, he said, what you did of gesture, were it to be brought to the ocean, it was like such a dark drop that it would have blackened the ocean. Like, it was so bad. That do not do that. She didn't even say anything. She just gestured, she's short. But the reason why is because listen, you know what mockery goes down to? It all goes down to hurting someone's feeling. That's what it is. When you mock someone, it's not just because Allah's telling you don't do that, it's arrogance, but you're hurting someone, right? If you've ever been made fun of, it does not feel good. And Allah doesn't want to harm anyone. Allah doesn't want you to harm anybody. So when you make fun of somebody, you're harming them. That's why it goes under adha, which I told you. All types of harm. Don't mock anybody. Okay? It's a bad habit to have. The commentator of Ihya says, all types of mockery are prohibited because it is harm to others. Now you know how it harms, right? Hurts their feelings. It makes them look foolish. Others look down upon them. It hurts their self-esteem. Even their progress in life, they might not be able to progress thanks to the horrible things that you said about them. Yeah, this is why this class is important, guys. Next one. There's so many. These are all the topics for today. Frightening others. Frightening others. Saddam, can you hit the light? Frightening others. Ooh, this is also a big problem, guys. There's a hadith that says it is not permissible to frighten a believer. It is not permissible for a Muslim to frighten another Muslim. It is not permissible for a Muslim to frighten another Muslim. Causing fear, even if you're playing around without reason validated by the Sharia, is prohibited. This includes all types of causing fear. Even if it is only a word which was said, or changing one's voice to like a frightening animal, right? So, even if you're playing around, examples would include gesturing at someone with a sword. So you have a sword and then you start pointing at someone, and their heart for a second, they have that fear, right? They know you're playing around, but nonetheless, it's like when someone points a weapon at you, you get a little bit in your heart of like, I know it's fake, but it's not like someone who points to you a coffee cup and says, you want coffee? Right? Somebody points to you a sword. It's not like you can just avoid it. For a moment, you get moved a little bit. It's prohibited to do that. Or a piece of metal. You can say a baseball bat, right? A snake, animals, spiders, scorpions, anything. Just to scare a believer, not allowed. Also taking someone's belongings to make them fear that they were lost. I saw somebody do this a few days ago. Right? Took something from someone to make them feel like they lost it. Prohibited. It's a Muslim. Good to know this text. Don't take someone's wallet and say, I got it. Don't take someone's phone and say, I got it. If you did it, we make tawbah. Ya Allah, forgive us. What's the reason, guys? It goes back to the person you did that to will feel harmed, right? For a moment, you cause them to get worried. You cause them to be stressed out. You cause them to be sad. Oh, I lost my phone. I get so sad. Oh, I'm just kidding. No, not allowed by Islam. Frighten them, worry them, not allowed. Prohibited to do that. Okay? So frightening others, very important. Do not frighten them even as a joke. Even as a joke. You can't say, I'm just joking. Not permissible. There's so many kinds of jokes that are not allowed. Jesting is not allowed in a lot of cases. Okay? It's no excuse. Approaching others with what they have said about you, what to kafi. I guess this is Hassanian Mauritanian language, which means, hey, did you say this about me? People do this a lot. Hey, I heard you say something. Hey, I heard you said something about that guy. That stirs some fear in you, because usually what it means is they might come up to you and beat you up. Hey, did you hear? You know what somebody said about you? Now you might scare them or tell what others have said about him. So he says to gafi is approaching others with what they said about you. So what'd you say about me? Might make them worried. Oh, I'm just kidding. I know you said good stuff. You see that? For a moment, you made them get scared and you harmed them, right? There's no one nice. Would you go up to your teacher? Hey, teacher, I heard you said something about me. Teacher's like, excuse me? Well, good things. But don't say it like that. You scared me. Can you see that situation could occur? That's why it's not allowed, because you scared him. And all other types of harm. Anything that can harm someone, not allowed. This includes, another example, backbiting someone, calling out to the person by a name that they dislike. So if you call someone by a name they don't like to be called, that's also harming them. So what's a typical example? You can say like cheater, liar, right? Flake, hey wannabe, things they use in school, right? You know, a lot of other things you can use. Any type of name calling that they don't like is not allowed to say that. So don't call somebody by a name or a title they don't like. Call them by the good names that they like. Hey champ is better than hey fool, right? Hey buddy is better than hey monkey, right? Much better. Don't use bad terms. And I know in your schools, a lot of people do that. And I know around your friends, a lot of people do that. And I know that's going to affect you to be like that. You have to not do that. Not allowed to do that. Okay? So try to hold your ground for that. Yes?
What if, you say those things as a joke?
That's what it's saying. In jest, joking, not allowed to do that. Even in jest. Okay? You would have to be 100% sure that they're not bothered by it. And that's hard. Because even when somebody says, oh, it's okay, it's cool, they don't mean it. And also the scholars say, even if it's just jesting or playing between friends, the first 5 were funny, except the last one you added something that upset them. You know, a lot of times there's fights. 2 people are joking around, they're both cool with it, and then one of the person says something a little bit, right? Says 5 words they're cool with it. 1 word they added that they didn't like, and because of that being relaxed, joking, jesting, that 1 word came in and now you committed a prohibited act. For that reason, the scholars, they say it's better not to even joke about it. Don't joke around mocking one another. Don't joke around hurting one another in bad words. If the person has a name that sounds like a mockery or something disliked, but they themselves don't mind, they're telling you, call me by that, I love it, then that's a different issue. Okay? That's a different issue. So as long as the person is asking you, call me that, it's okay, it's actually allowed to do that in that case. Do you get it? But you can't assume I'm going to pick a title because I think they don't mind, especially if it's negative. The question you want to ask yourself is this something you want to be called? Would you mind that? And then think about it from there. All other types of harm. I'm going to give one example I heard recent from one of our sheikhs. He said that, this like sometimes coming to the mosque or eatings, gatherings. And somebody says to somebody, wow, man, you ate a lot. That's a harm. Whoa, you eat a whole lot, man. Wow, you ate all that? That's also harming somebody. That's very bad harm. Because then you make the person feel like horrible. It's probably never going to come back again. Did you eat all that? Wow. I mean, all kinds of other stuff. Hey, Okay, so if somebody does something wrong, you shouldn't correct them in front of others. And that what they do wrong has to be consensus. Okay? Meaning, you better know it's wrong for sure. Not if some scholars said it's wrong, other scholars said it's not. You need to know That's why if you want to correct anybody, ask a reliable teacher, a sheikh, if what they're doing is allowed by somebody or not. If they say no, it's not allowed by anybody, then you can go one-on-one, say, hey, please don't mind. I'm not saying I'm better than you or anything, but I'm reminding you of something you're doing that I think you may or may not know it's wrong, but you're doing this, it's not acceptable. Like, you shouldn't do that. If the person goes, who are you to tell me what to do? Say, hey, I did my responsibility. I just wanted to tell you. If you don't want to act on it, that's up to you. If they get mad, that's fine. But you need to use wisdom to tell people when they're doing something wrong. Because maybe they might say, oh my God, I didn't even know. Thank you so much for correcting. God bless you. Right? You're either going to get a good reaction or a negative reaction. So you can use your wisdom to decide if the person you're giving advice to is going to be positive or not. If it's somebody close to you, you think they're not going to mind, do tell them. But if somebody you just met, maybe you want to take a little time before you tell them so they're kind of nice with you and stuff like that. What I usually do is I might give a khutbah and then I'll talk about those things in the khutbah. Therefore, people listen and not be affected. They won't feel like I'm directly targeting them. Okay? So this is pretty much what I prepared for today. There is one thing about prohibitions in the bottom. Yeah, let's finish this part, inshallah. He says, all kinds of harm relates to, these matters are prohibited in the presence or absence, whether it has to do with a person, his family, or his dog. What does that mean? That means if you did something bad towards someone, it could be them, it could be their children. So you say, hey, you know so-and-so's kid, he's just so dumb. He doesn't understand anything. Horrible. If you did that horrible thing, you said that would mean that you have to ask the forgiveness of the children and the father. Because the family, you also backbited their whole family. So you said something bad about not just them, but their kids. And backbiting, when you speak something about somebody, so this kind of goes into backbiting. Let me first give you the definition of backbiting. Backbiting is, but here he's relating it back to mockery and insults and belittling and things like that. But in general, backbiting is when you mention something about someone who's not there, who, if they were there, they would dislike what you said. It's called backbiting. Okay? You said something about someone, or you texted someone, or you spoke on the phone to someone, or you wrote a letter, or whatever, where you mentioned something about someone, or their house of that someone, or their dog, or you can say their car, whatever it is, and that's all considered backbiting. Maybe you didn't talk about them directly, but you talked about their house, you talked about one of their animals, you talked about their home, you talked about their child, you talked about their belongings. It's indirectly backbiting the people. So it's best not to do that. And if you did that, you would have to seek forgiveness from the children as well as their family if backbiting was done to one who had children. An example would be you say, hey, you know, Anwar's dog, such a coward, that dog. That would be considered to backbite Anwar because, say, you have to have a legal reason why you can keep a dog, but say by Islamic law you kept a dog and then someone said something bad about your dog. Even that is, you shouldn't do that. Okay? And I put the definition there in the bottom. It says ghiba, that's backbiting. It says ghiba is saying something about a person they did not like. This is whether that matter has to do with the person's body, their religion, their lineage, their character, their wealth, their child, their parent, their wife, their servant, their garment, their clothes, their movements. The guy walks so funny, right? Whether it's their happiness, boy, that guy's always happy. There's something wrong with him, right? Their sadness, that guy's always sad. What's wrong with him? All of those things are considered backbiting. You see in this class how much you're learning and how crazy it's getting. More and more you're realizing how much people are saying these things, doing these things that are harmful. They're all harmful. So, no. So that's pretty much it. And if you backbited someone, you said something about somebody behind their back, you need to make tawbah, ask Allah to forgive you, and you should go and ask that person's forgiveness. Unless you know for sure that if you said that to them, it's going to lead to a bigger fight and more problems, then just ask for Allah for forgiveness. But if you know they're good, pious, they're not going to get really, really upset, like they'll fight you. They might get mad at you, but you still have to apologize to them. You don't have to say exactly what you said. You can say, I said some things about you. I ask for your forgiveness. Do you forgive me? Or you can say something in general, like, hey, I may have said some things about you in the past that I was wrong about. Would you please forgive me if I said anything about you? And the person's like, sure, right? So that's a good thing to do. If they don't forgive you, Allah's not going to forgive you on the Day of Judgment. The person has to forgive you. If you ask for their forgiveness, you apologize, you made tawbah, the guy's like, I'm not going to forgive you. Then that's okay. Allah will inshallah forgive you, hopefully, because you made the effort. And the person should forgive you. You see? But if you didn't make the effort, you didn't ask for that person's apology and their forgiveness, you didn't ask for that person's forgiveness, then it may be that Allah may not forgive you because you didn't ask for their apology, their forgiveness, excuse me. So you have to ask the forgiveness of the one you spoke bad about. And if you don't, on the Day of Judgment, they get to take your good deeds. Or if you don't have good deeds, they get to put some of their sins on you. Horrible thing to do. My advice, please, Ya Allah, help us to not backbite anybody. And labud, it is a must that forgiveness must be sought from the children as well as the father if backbiting was done to one who had children, as we mentioned. No. So this is what we prepared. This is the class for this week, inshallah. The notes are there. Those, inshallah, can refer to the notes, and hopefully those will also, the core of it, will help and benefit. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad. We will continue next week, inshallah, and more lines from Muharram al-Lisan. May Allah help us, guide us, and forgive us. Ameen.